Well, we certainly come from a land down under here this evening, as Phillip Island will play host to round 2 of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup Series, streaming live on iRacing Live and brought to you here by RaceSpotTV in just a couple of moments' time. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Skip Barber 2K World Cup Series, the 10th season of modus operandus for this series, and it certainly proves to be an exciting and enthralling race whenever we come along and see these skippies in action. A jam-packed field that we have today, currently in the qualifying conditions, 10 minutes, 2 laps. Get your laps sorted around this Phillip Island circuit here in Cowes, Victoria, Australia. 47 cars here playing today. It's hashtag Do You Mind. Jake Sperry joined alongside by Mr. Jack Styles. Jack, qualifying underway. Track conditions, it's cold in the air and there's a very heavy wind out there today. That's going to be playing havoc, especially along corners like Lukey Heights.
Yeah, definitely. Lukey Heights is a especially difficult corner. Quite high speed, quite a difficult corner to master, but also these Skip Barber cars, very small, very nimble. The wind is going to be affecting them quite a lot, and it's going to be interesting to see how the wind actually is going to change how they might take some of these corners.
Sebastian Job then currently fastest on a 1:45.208 for the core sim racing machine. Norbert Solza now up into position number 2 in the 2:09 machine. Miko Nasi, a name that we haven't seen for a very long time, former champion in the 1:49. He gets himself up in second position right now. Reigning champion and championship leader De Freitas goes third here, Jack.
Yeah, good lap times by those three. Sebastian Job, obviously, currently quickest, 1:45.2, but obviously the qualifying format here is 2 laps, so you only get 2 chances at this, and you've got to make that stick, because these cars, you need to get a good qualifying position to be able to finish well in the race, because it is very hard to overtake.
It certainly is, and for those of you wondering where our normal broadcaster is in the form of Mr. Will Vincent, unfortunately for some of you who are not aware right now, Will has currently come down and had a seizure over this past afternoon, so everyone here at RaceSpotTV wishes him the biggest get well soon as possible here today, and we'll try and do the best as we can here watching the action at Phillip Island, keeping my eye out on the likes of Sebastian Job and Johnny Gawindi, because they have lap times to go in. Tuan Tron then rounding the final corner here, the oval specialist Tuan Tron. He'll look to try and make his run then to the start-finish line, rounding, of course, that final corner, turn number 12. Trying to make that big last gasp to the line here, Jack. And, well, you have to talk about this circuit being very difficult in a number of different areas. Firstly, it's got one of the highest average speed ratios of any circuit anywhere, as Tuan Tron goes P number 5. What a lap time from him. The other thing that you have to remember right now is the fact that pit lane is going to be so narrow.
It is, and they have a rule in this series with pit lane that you have to use the second pit exit. So the cars are going to be rejoining the course at turn number 1, Doohan Corner, at high speed. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. The pit lane here at Phillip Island is very narrow. It's very tight, very hard to navigate. 47 cars. We're probably going to see most of them on turn number 10, and then out through Swan Corner, bring you gracefully back onto the main straight and across the line to start that another lap.
Car number 2, Mr. 2K World Cup himself, Philippe hasn't set a lap time, needs to set a lap time, makes his run to the line. He does himself a 1:45.2. It's only good enough for P number 5. Nasi currently on pole position as things stands right now. Other drivers trying to get across the line. Kane Halliburton currently P11. And he gets himself up with a 1:45.397 up to position number 7. So a great lap time from him. Greg Seitz across the line. One more lap for him to do. That is a poor lap by Greg Seitz standards. Only P18 right now, Jack.
Yeah, that's not what the pace we usually see from him. I'm pretty sure he'll be very frustrated. He's over a second off the pole lap of Miko Nasi. He's done a 1:44.9. That's a brilliant lap from him. He's currently provisional pole, and he has completed his 2 laps. The only people who I can see who are left out on circuit to finish are Ryan Terry and Greg Seitz at the moment. Everyone else seems to have finished their laps or be now completing them, so qualifying is nearly over, Jake.
It is nearly over, and they've got 2.5 minutes to get over the line. Enzo Cantor in the 924 for the Thrustmaster Movano team. Let's see what he can do on his second and final lap. 1:45.6, needs a little bit more. 1:45.3 he does. He goes P7, knocks Halliburton down. What a lap time from Enzo Cantor. That's the Cantor that we certainly like to see on the drag races to the line. Brian Kelly has done all his lap times. Someone who hasn't, though, is Andrew Carroll in the great British flag that we see there, the Union Jack livery, as he rounds himself through turn number 11. Jack Carroll currently hasn't set a lap time. He needs one.
He definitely needs one, because if you start at the back of this grid, you've got a long way to work back up to the front. And obviously, as I said earlier, these cars, everyone's running in the same car. These are spec cars, the Skip Barber, and they have not a lot of power, so the draft is definitely important here, and you do need to be able to be confident in overtaking and late braking maneuvers in this car to be able to make some good moves to get towards the front.
It was only P42 for Andrew Carroll. Greg Seitz final lap, making the run to the line in the 74 machine for TT Racing. What can he do to change anything? 1:45.2, that's better. Position number 5 up on the grid. What a lap from Greg Seitz, the driver who finished in position number 2 overall in the first race of the season at Road Atlanta. Carl Dronke, he'll only have this lap only because he won't get back to the line in time. We'll see what Carl Dronke can do in the 192, and the answer's going to be, as soon as he makes that run to the line, a 1:46.167, so that's only P35 for Dronke. He will be disappointed by that. Normally, we see him in and around the top 20. For the time being, that's everyone across the line who can set a lap time. Qualifying results are like this. Welcome back, one of the champions of this series, Miko Nasi. He gets the pole position, 1:44.918. He's joined on the front row by Sebastian Joe, 1:44.934. Arjen de Freitas, the reigning champion, number 1, position number 3 for the Positive Sim Racing team. Norbert Souza will join him on row 2, and row 3 is an all-TT racing affair. Greg Seitz leading out Mr. 2K World Cup, Philippe Lebert. Jolly Go Indy will start in position number 7 with Enzo Cantor in 8th. Kane Halliburton will start in 9th. Tuan Tran rounds out your top 10. And then you look further down the grid as we cycle it on down. Drivers like Brian Dell, who will look to try and make his way through for the Positive Sim Racing team. Drivers like Amir Meshalam here in P17. Drivers like Bill Fraser, that we know very, very well in P21. Marco Derrick, surprisingly, down the order in position 23. And then you have those towards the back of the field, the likes of Lionel Gamay, Tom Ward, and Michael Halfadassen here today. 47 cars will take to this grid, and we are going to certainly see some sensational action from everyone here today. Turn 1 will always be very, very difficult here. It's fast, it's flowing, and what is going to be key is keeping up that average top speed. These vehicles are built on momentum, and the advantage here today will go to the vehicles who are lined up on the inside of the grid. Those with odd numbered layouts, they will have that advantage of the inside line in towards turn number 1 today.
Yeah, they will.
It's worth noting here, ladies and gentlemen, we get our timings a little bit mixed up here between the pair of us. It is worth noting that today is 30 laps of racing. 1 pit stop is a mandatory requirement because of the fuel, and those who don't go long enough on the fuel will run themselves into just a few issues, waiting for the last few cars to get themselves up onto the starting grid here. Of course, 2 minutes to get yourself gridded up, otherwise you start from the dreaded word of pit lane, and you do not want to be starting in pit lane here today. It's going to be a long challenge for anyone trying to go back through the field. Drivers like Tom Ward in the 224, he is expected to make some good moves up through the field. Lionel Gamay, very much the same by the way that he can make some charges up through the field. Expect maybe a few shocks, expect maybe a few drivers to try and make that breakaway very early on here in this field. It is difficult to get that getaway, but many drivers want that opportunity to give themselves the greatest opportunity that they can. Narcy there on the pole, on the front of the field. He will dictate who will go and who will try and get past him. 2 minutes are up, engine notes will rev. And the green flag's there, and we're going to get going. There was maybe a little bit of creeping, and it was a poor start from Solza, who gets absolutely swamped by the TT Racing team in P4, P5, and now P6 as well, as they all make that charge to Doohan Corner, turn number 1. And for the time being, it's going to be all nice and clear at the front of the field. No real dramas as they head towards the southern loop of turn number 2. Job looks on the outside, but he won't be able to make that move. Single file, they're going to try and go 2 wide behind Colin Van Ram and the likes of Amir Meshalam here, getting themselves into a nice little scrap. We're all clean for now here, Jack.
Yeah, we are. There was one car just went off from turn 1. Just trying to find who that was, not quite sure, but maybe just got the turn in a little bit late and just made a small mistake. But Miko Nassi, he is leading this field by the looks of it at the front. Or no, saying that, he has lost the lead. Looks like Sebastian Job has managed to find his way up to the front. So Sebastian Loeb currently leading this field as they go into turn 6 for the first time.
Yes, Sebastian Job now the Core Sim Racing driver up into position number 1 and doing a very good job of things. The train certainly becoming very difficult out of Siberia. Now the run to Lukey Heights, the very fearsome blind left-hand corner up at the top of the hill, and Miko Nasi would like to dictate pace at the front of this field, but for the moment he has to sit behind and wait for a better opportunity. Now down the hill into MG Corner, turn number 10, and this is going to be a really, really big overtaking opportunity today here, Jack, because we know that on the brakes there aren't many high-speed braking zones. This is one of maybe only 2 areas where you can really make something happen.
Yeah, it's going to be coming into MG Corner there, and the same with Honda Corner, turn 4. So those are really the only 2 places that they can make a good lunge down the inside on the brakes. And obviously the brakes in this car are highly important. The later on the brakes you can get, the better, because they do not have the power and they do not have the speed to be able to challenge themselves going down the straights unless you have something unless you have a very powerful draft.
Tuan Tran then makes his way through on Brian Dell then for position number 9 out on circuit. Tuan Tran moves himself up +1 as he looks to try and make that charge through. Train at the front though is absolutely stacked, and all the big names, the who's who shall we say of Skip Barber Racing, are all at the front. Norbert Solza side by side at the back of this train with Mr. Johnny Gowindi, got his first race win in the championship last season at the endurance race at Bathurst. Side by side they all go down into Honda Bend, and well, you can see Gowindi just taking advantage of that. Now side by side with Philippe Lebert, Mr. 2K World Cup, who's stuck on the outside for Siberia, which is difficult to hold around the outside, and he will look to try and fall back into line ever so slightly, cost himself the momentum a little bit here, as now Norbert Solza, Jack, will try and get himself onto the rear and make the move up Lukey Heights.
Yeah, let's see if he can make the move, because that would be interesting to see. But just looking back a bit, we have a group of must be at least 15 cars, and these guys are side by side. There's about 3 or 4 deep, 2 wide, and it is amazing racing to see. These guys incredibly clean, incredibly good and respectful drivers, as we just see some side by side coming through MG corner there. But everyone at the moment seeming to be very well behaved, very clean, and lots of passes currently happening all the way through your field. Too many for us to keep up with, as we see Norbert Solzer heading onto pit lane.
Norbert Solzer then has jumped the start by my reckoning there. I did see a little bit of creeping, and Solzer, with that jumping the start, we do believe it's not official. We'll try and confirm it later on, but a drive-through penalty or even a stop and hold. Solzer's race has now turned in its dynamic from something which was going to be brilliant to something a whole lot less. Side by side, 2 wide, 2 deep down the front straight. Marco Derricks under pressure. Kachka is there. Kabanga's going to make it 3 wide into turn number 1. This is for position number 19. Huge wiggle from Derricks though in through turn number 1. He holds it somehow as he gets himself going through. Now to turn number 2. Derricks holds. Very, very good driving.
Yeah, brilliant driving there. That's obviously these guys. They're still going. They're still going for it here. This is a long race. We've still got about 27.5 laps to go, but these guys, they're all the way on it already. The top, I'd say, the top 10 covered by 4 seconds. That is brilliant to see. And these are some of the best races you will probably see, and very close racing in the Skip Barber series, especially in the 2K World Cup, because these guys know how to drive this car.
Yes, they certainly do, and they know that any one small mistake may be punished. Gawindi side by side with Leibert on the run to Lukey Heights. The 2 teammates don't want to take each other out. Left-hander, a lot of room given by Leibert, who was stuck on the outside line, which is never the right line to be taking through Lukey Heights, so he backs out of it and waits for a better opportunity here around this circuit. And actually behind Marco Derricks, look at this train. You've got drivers like Adam Blocker in there, Bastian Hausmann struggling, Mike McCormick in there, drivers like Casey Black, and actually car going to bail off to the right hand side into the wall. That's Carl Dronke, who had the poor qualifying, now has very, very chilly feet with the broken nose.
Yeah, that's a shame for him. Bit of damage to that car. I would expect that to be at least his challenge over. He'll probably get back out, as we see Aaron De Verde, he's into pit lane. Not sure why that could be. Maybe he jumped the start. We'll find out, I guess, in a minute. But just to confirm, Norbert Solzer did have a stop and go. He had a stop of 2.9 seconds, so probably explains to me that he had a stop and go penalty, probably for jumping the start, Jake. Replay
on screen then of the incident that we saw with Carl Dronke there. Straight right snap oversteer into the tyre barrier, and is very, very difficult to deal with. Now De Freitas back out behind Enzo Cantor. That's going to be useful for him because he knows he now has a partner that he can really work with here in these early stages. But for his championship challenge, that's going to be a little bit more difficult because more often than not here today, Jack, we're going to see from Aaron De Freitas, we are more likely to see him use his drop week here, one of 4 that he will have available to him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, this is going to be a bad round for him already. He's dropped right down to 39th position in this field, and he's going to be doing very well to make a lot of that time back up. So don't expect him to be using this as his drop week. And let's see if I'm sure he will have much better races in the season to come. Obviously, this is only round 2 of this season, I believe, so it's very early on in the season. People may be still finding their feet if they're new to this series, so we're seeing obviously some veterans here up at the front. Sebastian Joe continuing to lead, but Aaron De Freitas there, just unfortunate for him, down in 39th position.
Yes, Aaron De Freitas starting to struggle a little bit. Battle going on, though, for positions outside of the top 7 here. Drivers of Michael Dalla Valle, Brian Dell, and also Gareth Dorning here. All this battle for the last spots inside the top 10. Battle for the lead, though, is going to hot up a little bit more. Miko Nasi's had enough. Back to the front he goes, into position number 1, into the southern loop, and that was as easy and as textbook as you like. Behind that, Gareth Dorning gets the 2-for-1 special. He moves to the front of the train, and this is where it looks a little bit like cycling here, Jack, as they all try and make those moves. Dalla Valle wanted to try and get that one around the outside the southern loop. You never make it around the outside of the southern loop.
No, you don't. And obviously, you said this is like cycling. It's like watching a breakaway in a peloton. This is brilliant racing. Very close, very, very competitive. As we see even more moves. That's Greg Seitz looking like he's going to come up the inside. Sebastian Job into turn number 4, up to 2nd. Maybe even going to take the lead here. Don't think he will. I don't think he's got enough momentum. Little touch there, I think, maybe. But and Miko Nasi is going to retain the lead. Sebastian Joe going to move back up into second using that inside line coming through turn 6. But these guys really not giving up. There's still 25 laps left and they're going side by side and they're going all for it.
1 inch only being given a piece of paper you can slot between the two, and well, to the inside goes Sebastian Joe, but Lukey Heights, and it's too wide, too deep, and there's a bit of contact there between Sights and Nasi, and that will drop the pair of them back into MG corner, and it's Sebastian Joe who still leads. Nasi now playing the defense role in second. Third is now out of absolutely nowhere going to be Johnny Gowindi, as the TT Racing boys now start having a little bit of harry on and a little bit of scrapping together. Normally here, Jack, we talk about positive sim racing being that train at the front that does so well. Drivers like Paul Malokas, drivers like Arian De Freitas and Brian Dell. This time, it's going to be all about the train behind of TT Racing. Side by side, they'll go for the race lead. Miko Nasi back to the front. 5 vehicles. This is like seeing Monza in the late 50s, early 60s. And now it's Greg Sykes up into third and Johnny Gowindi up into fourth. Nasi runs a little bit wide. Side by side, they remain. Now back to single file, side by side for third.
Yes, all car getting loose there, coming around the outside of turn number 2, coming through the southern loop, just proving that you cannot do that. He lost 2 positions there. Not sure who that was. I'm sure I'll have it confirmed in a minute. But these guys really going for it, and they're definitely showing well. The Skip Barber series is such a good series to learn racecraft here on the iRacing services. We see more cars trying to go around the outside, coming through Honda corner. I wouldn't even say get a piece of paper between that gap there that those cars left then. So these guys really going for it. Very close racing here at Phillip Island.
Yes, that was Johnny Gowindi struggling at the southern loop. Kane Halliburton trying to go around the outside and try and make something happen. He did get 1 position there, and that was the driver of Johnny Gowindi. He managed to get his way through, but they settled down ever so slightly for the time being. Behind this, though, we got a group from P11 on backwards. Drivers like Mick Watson, Colin Van Raam, Bill Fraser, John Ocken, and Ryan Terry here, train of 5, going on at it right now. And these positions for around P10 to P15, they're so crucial because positions change so quickly in the pit stop window here today, Jack.
Yeah, they do, and the pit stops are going to be incredibly important. It's going to come down, especially with pack racing, it's going to come down to who has the shortest pit stop to be able to use or gain the most amount of time out on circuit. Even 1 second can make the difference of 10-15 places, as we see Sebastian Joe heading up the inside of Miko Nasi coming for the lead. Sebastian Joe going to retake the lead here as we come down into Doohan corner for the 7th time.
Yes, 7th out of 30, and there was a little bit of a look there, an effort of a look from Greg Sykes, but in the end it wasn't going to work. Now Leibert's going to run 4 tyres off the circuit. Be careful about that. You don't want to risk yourself running off. There is a marshal's post just in front of turn number 2. If you catch that, it's surely going to be game over. They all survive. They hold on, trainer 7. I'll tell you the driver who is in the catbird seat right now. It's Tuan Tran. Maybe not the quickest driver in the world, but if he stays on this group, he could get some very respectable points. To the inside now goes Leibert on his teammate Sykes, looking for Nasi. Not going to happen. Gowindi goes in deep on Sykes. Sykes has to give the room, and the teammates are fighting.
Yeah, they are. This is obviously teammates usually are allowed to fight, and they're no exception in this series, clearly. And Tuan Charan, if he keeps here and these guys ahead of him do unfortunately have an instant, because these guys are racing very close, we could see Tuan Charan up at the front, getting 3rd maybe on the podium. All he's got to do is stay tight, stay put, and he could have a good result at the end of this race.
Mistake for Colin Van Raam. He had a little bit of contact with the driver of Bill Fraser, gets turned around at Siberia and drops himself down to the back of the train. So already here, drivers starting to struggle with that effect that happens here of drivers losing out in certain positions. Huge crash though with the 125 of Colin Van Raam. That's a big, big shame that we have just seen caught up 3, 4, 5 vehicles in that one. Brian Kelly getting involved, and that was that 4th pack which has just completely splintered. 4 cars there altogether, all getting massively involved.
Yeah, just saw a bit of too wide coming through there, and unfortunately Von Ram was caught up in that. Had a lot of damage on that car. Looks like, yeah, he just got taken out by a couple of other cars behind. 4 cars involved in that. I'd even say maybe 5. So that's a shame. Not only 1 car that was involved in that. That was 5 or 6. So Von Ram is still going. He's trying to get that car back to the pits. He is not giving up. But we have lost a lot of high-placed drivers here today already, and we're only on lap 7.
Oh, mistake for Kane Halliburton as he runs into the grass. He'll lose the position to Tuan Tran, who will go, thank you very much. Changes though in position. Phillip Barber now wants to get himself to the lead, to the outside of Sebastian Job, and now to the outside of all of them tries Johnny Guindi at Honda. So Job will hold the man and push him out to the outside. Small kink here at turn number 5. It does count as a corner here, and it does prove dividends in terms of the stewarding that is here today as Greg Sykes gets the nose heavily chopped by Johnny Guindi, going down the inside of him. And you feel that the pit stop window opens around lap 10 here today, maybe lap 11, Jack. And that's going to be crucial. If someone decides to jump in early, it's about who decides when they want to come in. And secondly, do they have a dancing partner coming along with them?
Yeah, definitely, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see, obviously, these pit stops. They are going to come very soon, as we've just seen a bit of an incident between Craig Hobson and Norbert Schulze. It looks as though they tangled at some point, and Craig is out of this race, probably along with high damage. That car looking pretty banged up there, so end of his race for Norbert, and Norbert is carrying on trying to get that car back. So those two having a tangle, Norbert really not having the day he wanted here today, Jake.
Car going off as well that we've seen. That's Andrew Carroll just trying to get himself then back on circuit, but we've just seen a replay of what happened to Hobson in the 206. Pit stop window is open officially. Kurt Crum down onto the lane. JB Masida also onto the lane. Battle for the lead still continuing right now as there's been a change. Barber now to the front of the field. So this train of 7, the window is now officially classed as open at the end of lap 8, start of lap 9. It is quite early to go through, but if you're in a train and you're saving fuel, it's going to be useful. Miko Nasi now maybe looking to the inside. Job now to the outside of Barber. You just can't know where to look here in this series as they all start battling still. Traffic ahead of them as well in Roman Kajka. This is going to be crucial here, side by side for third as Nasi and Guindi go at it here, Jack.
Yeah, these guys are proving great racing. Traffic is going to be a big influence today. Obviously, these cars all similar pace or similar power, so traffic is going to be very hard to navigate. The traffic could also cause some incidents. It'd be a shame if we saw that, but it is a high possibility. But these leaders, we have the top 7 covered by about 1.5 seconds. This is brilliant racing we're seeing today here at Phillip Island, and these guys are definitely not going to give up anytime soon as Phillip Barber just tries to hold on to this lead, but Sebastian Job is really not going to let him keep it.
Oh, huge wiggle from Barber out of MG corner. They've got to be careful about anything like that happening. Does anyone play chicken and come down to the lane? Yes, they do. Phillip Barber joined by Miko Nasi then down onto the lane. It's a difficult lane because Barber's run wide and he goes straight into the pit wall, and that's game over for Barber. We knew the difficulties of pit road, and Barber, Mr. 2K World Cup, the man who doesn't make mistakes, gets caught out heavily by that one big incident. He's lucky there's fast repairs, but that will cost him a severe amount of time, Jack.
Yeah, it will. He just took far too much speed onto pit lane there. He's only now come to a stop, but he had a lot of damage on that car. So the fast repair is definitely going to help. It means that he can get straight back out onto circuit. But Sebastian Job has taken over the lead of this race. Johnny Guindi is in second, Greg Sykes in third. Tuan Tran, he's all of a sudden up to 4th. This is obviously because of the pit stops, but don't expect to see him challenging for the lead later on in this race.
Tuan Tran is currently up 6 positions, and all eyes will turn then to the driver of Miko Nasi then, and where he can land when he gets himself back out and away again, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. He's behind Ryan Terry and he's got clean air. That's going to be useful, and he is clear of the group of Kurt Crum, the drivers of JB Masida, Carl Dronke, Andrew Catt, Adam Blocker. That train also came down onto pit road in the early going, so Nasi has clean air, and that's going to be worrying drivers like Sebastian Job, like Johnny Guindi, who know that they have to keep on going and keep on plugging away at this group because they know that Miko Nasi might come back into his own benefactor when the pit stop window comes into play, which it is right now. Roman Kajka now surely becoming lap traffic here as he's within a second and a half. Will anyone come down onto the lane this time, Jack? That's going to be the question that people are going to be asking. Does anybody decide to respond? No, they all stay out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all going to stay out, try and save fuel, but they're now catching that number 66 machine. I think he's just going to let them pass, but before they pass them, they're going to use this draft. They're going to save that tiny little bit of fuel that could be the difference. But as we see Roman Kajak into the wall there, as we see the leaders going past him, just a little bit too far over, bit of damage on that car. So that's a bit of an unfortunate incident for him, but that's just one of the dangers of letting the leaders pass. Obviously, the usual unwritten rule of motorsport is if the leader catches you and they're faster than you, you stay on your normal line, and they will find their own way past.
Yes, and that's got to be Kane who he's taken out. That's got to be Kane. And I've been waiting about 2 races to say that line from good old JR. But Kane Halliburton, at the expense of Kajka, is now pretty much out of this event. Guess who's on the back of this train now after everything that's happened? It's Mr. Norbert Solzer, but the difference for Solzer, he's now 1 lap down, and that is going to be the big difficulty for Solzer to get back through this group. Halliburton will be classified as not finished after the end of this, but a big incident like that certainly will be one that they don't want to be dealing with. And you have to feel there has to be a little bit of responsibility on that incident on those drivers trying to take that draft, because Kajka really didn't have many places to go as they decided to go pretty much paper width wide past him as he went going through.
Yeah, I mean, this circuit is not a wide circuit at all, and Kajka did the right thing. He got out of the way of the leaders, and I think that was a very sensible thing to do from him. He did it on the main straight, probably the longest bit of straight we have here at Phillip Island, but I just think they didn't leave him enough room, and maybe inexperience there just meant that he went too far into the wall, and that little bit of contact then took out the 216 of Kane Halliburton.
Vehicles also coming down to pit road currently are Mick Watson of the 666 machine. He looks to hit the line. He hits the line pretty good, in my opinion, as he tried to get himself down in. Also coming down in, Christian Kabanka from position number 11 was starting P27 for his day right now. So about half the field has come down in to make their stop, and you'll see that most drivers will try and go longer as long as possible as Bill Fraser makes his way through on John Ocken. That now for position number 7, so Bill Fraser making good roads. But they'll try and go as long as possible here today, Jack, because it means they put less fuel in the car. Remember, they don't change tyres. Side by side, they stay as Fraser, very, very wiggly out of the southern loop, loses the position.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously want the shortest time on pit lane as possible to be able to regain that track position, and also it means the car will be lighter towards the end of the race, and you'll have a longer amount of time with a lighter car. So you want to run the tank as dry as you can in the first stint, and run the second stint with a very, very low amount of fuels. Expect to see all the leaders who are currently still out coming in a bit later on in this race. Don't expect them to pit anytime soon like we did in the first 3 drivers.
No, certainly not, as they continue on battling here at the front of this field. Sebastian Job, we haven't seen many overtakes in the last few laps, and that's probably down to strategy call. Gawindi trying to run the fuel out of Sebastian Job, so he'll have to go maybe into pit road a lap earlier than what some other people can. And in fact, 3 will jump in. Very late decision there from the driver of Greg Seitz, and he'll go straight on the grass and lose a position. All hit the brakes very, very hard. Check up on the line and see if anyone was struggling to try and seem quick in. They all jumped at the same time, and at the moment, it seems that all of them were playing chicken. Greg Seitz, the big loser, Jack.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate for him, just a tiny bit late trying on that decision to come onto pit lane. Sebastian Job as well, missing his pit box, having to reverse just that tiny bit. So these guys really making pit entry look hard. We aren't at the half distance yet. They're coming in with 18 laps to go, and it's going to be interesting to see who's out. Johnny Gawindi, first person moving, 12.7 second stop. Tuan Charan got a 16-second stop, so Johnny Gawindi definitely the biggest winner out of that, with the shortest stop, 4 seconds shorter than anyone else who's just pitted.
And Philippe Lebert is going to jump the lot. Even with his big moment, he's managed to make the gap and make the time. Question is, where is Miko Nassi in this field right now? Just going to try and have a look to see exactly where he is overall. And the answer is an absolute country mile away. Did he speed down on pit road? Well, if Miko Nassi has, then that is huge, because he is now with Dalla Valle. Miko Nassi completely out of this race and struggling. Gareth Dorning also having a big moment at the southern loop, and now it's a very difficult situation because traffic versus non-traffic coming into play. Neil Kemp falls behind Greg Seitz. It's all change here, Jack.
It is, and our current leader, who the first car on the track who stopped, Aaron de Verde. That early stop has definitely made his strategy look good. He's on his 11th lap of this stint so far, so he is currently leading this race. We don't know whether he might have to do another stop.
Probably will.
At the moment, he is... Yeah, he probably will, because he did pit quite early. But at the moment, he is leading this race. Phillip Lebert in second place, just 4 seconds behind Aaron de Verder. Obviously, these guys, 4th and 5th at the moment, 3 cars ahead of him, have not pitted yet.
Yeah, Aaron de Verder currently in the lead. Brian Dell then comes in for the Positive Sim Racing team, decides to bite the bullet and become the first driver to jump in on lap 13 of the event. Andrew Leach will also jump down onto the lane. Casey Black will also try and get himself down in as well. Aaron de Verder will stay out because he came down in earlier to serve what was a drive-through penalty, or actually a stop and go, shall we say, for jumping the start. So now it becomes a different challenge in its entirety. Johnny Gawindi P2, currently in P1 net is Philippe Lebert at the front of the field. 1.5 seconds gap, and Lebert is a very lucky lad, especially knowing that he had that big incident coming down onto pit road here, Jack.
Yeah, he is, and he's done very well to jump all the drivers ahead of him with all that time he lost coming onto pit road. But it'll be interesting to see how far Aaron de Verder can actually get his car to go. He did have a 7.8 second stop, which makes me think he did leave pit lane with a full tank of fuel. Off. So maybe he can get to the end as we see a car off. Not sure which one that is, Jake. I think you have it.
Dalla Valle then having a big moment at the Southern Loop, and he just went straight on there, battling with Mikko Nasi, and it is the 207 that has gone and had that big moment. It's a very long recovery, and he's now behind Mick Watson. Mikko Nasi has come out with Brian Dell in the 88, and that's going to be crucial because Brian Dell can work with Mikko Nasi, and they can get those gaps back in. Nasi is only about 12 seconds off of the back of Philippe Lebert, so there is some solace in him catching a few drivers ahead. Tuan Tran versus Sebastian Job, though. Job still has a dancing partner, and that will help him in the drafting areas. Yeah,
it will, and if he can maybe save some fuel at the moment, I think he's just got past Tuan Tran, so Sebastian Job up to 4th place and Tran down to 5th, but these two, I think they're going to be drafting each other, maybe trying to save a little bit of fuel and pull themselves back up to the front of this field.
Yes, a lot of saving will certainly have to be done in this 30-lap event. We're heading to halfway. Next time they cross the line, Tran to the outside then as they head towards turn number 1. Well, it's going to be moved done by Tuan Tran, but Job isn't going to relinquish it into turn number 1. And thank you very much, he says, going through that big Doohan corner. He gets the position back then in this race as things stand. Now there has to be a little bit of talk going on between the drivers because Philippe Lebert is currently the quickest man on circuit, 1:44.8. He is setting absolutely blistering times, but he was smashed by Sebastian Job just then, who did a 1:44.3, and by my reckoning, that is the fastest lap of the race so far. Tran had another look, but again, he wasn't able to make it happen.
Yeah, Philippe Lebert currently holding the fastest lap of this race, 1:44.1. So Sebastian Job only 2/10 off, and obviously 2/10 in this car is quite hard to find. But don't expect Sebastian to find it by the end of this race. Philippe Lebert currently holding your fastest lap and is one of the fastest drivers out on circuit right now.
4-car train then in the middle of your pack right now. Mick Watson, Michael Dalla Valle, who had that big moment, Ryan Terry and Bill Fraser all together here for positions 13, 12, 11 and 10 out on circuit. Net 9, 10, 11 and 12 on their run to Lukey Heights. Mick Watson at the front. Dalla Valle will be getting himself a little bit of the red mist descending. Once you start making mistakes, you get frustrated. Big power move looking to the inside from Terry, but Terry won't be able to make it happen at Lukey Heights. They'll stay line astern.
Yeah, I've just got my eye on these two, this battle between Sebastian Job and Tuan Tran, because these guys are not letting each other go. Sebastian just got a little bit of gap on Tran now, so I think he might hold it coming down here, but Tuan Tran getting the draft, coming down into turn 1 for this time, but he's just going to hold back, not going to risk it coming into here, which is probably a safe move. Getting onto the grass a little bit actually in the braking zone, but just coming through here, going to start their 16th lap. We're now into the second half of this motor race.
We certainly are. Car off, and it's Craig Hobson for the second time at the Southern Loop, and he just went straight on with Norbert Solzer just behind him with Aaron de Verder as well, looking to try and make some lap traffic of the very quick driver who finished in 3rd position last time out at Road Atlanta. But something to note, Sebastian Job and Tuan Tran are doing exactly the wrong thing in this situation, Jack, in my opinion. If they start using cooperation, as we sometimes say, it means that Tran and also Job can use that to their advantage, because they can gain that time using the toe, catch up to Johnny Guindi instead of being very selfish between the pair of them and deciding they want to trade positions and in fact hold each other up by going side by side.
Yeah, I mean, if these two use a little bit of teamwork, they could be up on the back of Johnny Guindi and fighting for third instead of fighting for fourth and fifth between themselves. I mean, Johnny Guindi on that last lap was slower than both of them. He did a 1:45.1, Sebastian Job did a 1:44.8, and Tuan Tran with a 1:44.999. Good time from him, just getting under the 1:45s. But I think we could see these two up to the back of him. Maybe they're going to start using a little bit of teamwork. But Sebastian Job is now close enough to Johnny Guindi to get that draft. He's less than a second as we see Aaron de Verder onto pit lane for the second time. Phillip Lebert is going to inherit the lead.
You'll get them right someday. Aaron de Verder then down to pit road as was expected at lap 16. He'll get a full tank of fuel and he'll try and send himself on his merry way. No tyres will be changed, but the fuel will be crucial. Where will de Verder come out in terms of this for the dance? Because it's a great recovery from having to come down onto pit road in the very early stages of this event. You can see full tank coming through. Drivers like Bill Frater have made their way past already, and de Verder, it's a long stop for him as he now finally gets himself away. He'll have Enzo Cantor just behind him to try and use for a little bit of company, but he's now in the middle of two big trains here. He's got Blocker, Kabanga, Crum, and Masida just ahead of him. JB Master under heavy amounts of pressure into the southern loop. And that's going to really worry de Verder, because he knows he's got to, firstly, A, catch up to this group which is fighting with each other, and then B, not get involved in their scrap.
Yeah, and I'm just watching the battle a bit further up the field. Sebastian Job has inherited itself up to second. Johnny Guindi is down to third, so he caught up to him very fast and got past him. He was almost a second faster on that last lap. So Sebastian Job up to second. He's still about 3 seconds behind Phillip Lebert in the lead, but Johnny Guindi is not letting him go. He wants that second place back, and we have battles all the way down through the field. The racing is very close, very tight today, and Aaron de Verder is definitely going to be one to watch charging back through the field.
Yes, he will be, and looking at Sebastian Job and the gaps he's got to try and close down, he does have the advantage of knowing he's only got one vehicle in between him and Philippe Lebert, and that's the lap traffic of Mike McCormick, who can be very useful. Norbert Solzer now down onto pit road after his lots of saving of fuel in the early goings. Lebert crosses the line. His lap time of 1:44.8, very respectable, side by side for second, as Johnny Guindi now looks to try and make it TT Racing 1 and 2. He does, and the gap is 2.6 seconds when they cross the line. Sebastian Job knows he can't afford to be embroiled in a fight with Johnny Guindi. Guindi is helping his teammate now try and escape up the road.
Yeah, he is, and Phillip Lebert is definitely getting away with it. That gap getting bigger by every single corner because Johnny Guindi is having to defend from Sebastian Job. But Tuan Tran, he's still there. He's only a second back from Johnny Guindi, so do not count him out. He's going to have that draft, and as long as he can stay to the back, I think we could see him on the podium by the end of this race.
Aaron de Verder gets overtaken by the driver of Enzo Cantor, deciding to fall back into line. Maybe he's not comfortable on his fuel-saving antics here, because it seems that even though he's had this long stop, getting into a train and actually falling back the way that he has, I feel that he's not confident on his fuel, and if he runs out of fuel, it's going to be an even worse finish than P18, which he currently resides in right now here, Jack.
Yeah, and I think the fuel is going to be very important, because if you even get it slightly wrong, I mean, Aaron de Verder, he's going to be fine, because obviously he pitted so late and he had one of the longest stops in the field, I think. So unfortunate for him, obviously, that stop-go penalty at the start of the race did hinder his charge a bit and means that he is now right down in P18 in his field. But everyone else seems to have got the strategy spot on. Johnny Guindi is one that I'm a bit worried about, because he had such a stop, but maybe he started with a bit more fuel in the car at the start of this race, which meant that he could have that shorter stop to be able to gain some time on the other guys. But Phillip Lebert is onto pit road.
Philippe Lebert then onto pit road for a second time, and that is going to be very interesting. If he feels he couldn't make it to the end, he'll take a splash and dash. Now Johnny Guindi now up into the race lead with the driver of Sebastian Job in second, Tuan Tran, onto the back in position number 3. And we talk about this one here, Jack, because this circuit, you are spending more time on the throttle than probably anywhere else, 70 to 75%. Very similar to Monza in that regard, so fuel will always be very tight, even on same distances as other circuits, such as the likes of, say, Brands Hatch. Now Sebastian Job to the outside. Now it's a game of chicken. It's hot potato for the race lead. Nobody wants it.
No, nobody does. This lead is changing lap by lap. So just see a back marker again out of the way for very sensible move there, but the top three covered by less than a second, so this battle is going to go right to the wire. Sebastian Job currently leading it from Johnny Goindi and then Tran in third, but I cannot put my money on who's going to win this race. We've still got 11.5 laps to go, and honestly, any three of them could win it, or even we could see someone like Greg Seitz currently sitting in fourth, who's about 5 seconds back from the lead. If these three have an issue, Greg Seitz is quickly there in the clutches, ready to take over that lead.
Nico Nasi has also come down onto pit road, and there is a lot of traffic in front of him. The likes of Colin Van Raam, David McDonald, Stephen Stoyle, Scott Velez, and Neil Kemp. 5-car battle, and he's got to manage his way through the entirety of the train, and that's going to hold him up a lot here in this event. From where we thought it was the one stop, we're now starting to think it's going to be more of a two-stop strategy here today. So maybe, just maybe, it's going to be playing into the minds of a lot of people when they have to make that quick stop at the end of this event. Sebastian Job with Johnny Goindi just behind into turn number one. Goindi's now going to try and run him out of fuel as much as possible again, similar to that first stint, but now with all of those drivers that came in on exactly the same lap here, 1, 2 and 3, they know that with Philippe Laibert in, they've got to put in hammer laps. And for Philippe Laibert, he's now got to try and get past Enzo Cantor, and he has De Freitas there for company as well. And that's going to be really interesting, because we know De Freitas versus Laibert is arguably the biggest Skip Barber rivalry in the world.
Yeah, it is, and we know these two have stopped twice, so these two are definitely going to be close come the end. If everyone has got to stop again, which I would not be surprised to see, because I did not see anyone who did a 15-lap first stint. So Aaron De Freitas, maybe he did have the right strategy pitting early, and maybe that stop-go maybe played into his hands a bit, being able to actually, and he might come out on top of this.
Might do, but he came down in lap 2, lap 3, so he will have to go very, very far on his tank. Only managed about a 13-lap stint. He is going to be borderline. It will take him to about lap 29, maybe lap 30 with a bit of fuel saving. So it's not over for him. He knows he can have that ability. Side by side, though, further up, Mick Watson in the 666, having a nice little scrap with Bill Fraser in the 141. Fraser just waiting just behind, looking for an opportunity, maybe at Lukey Heights to the inside, but the wide entry with a missed apex slightly by Mick Watson will be one that the driver of Bill Fraser can't do too much about. Then on the brakes, right-hander then of MG Corner. They'll stay line astern just for the moment. Johnny Goindi is down onto pit road then, and that is the big jump then. He decides to bite the bullet early, as staying out is Tran and Job, so Johnny Goindi down onto his box.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see Job and Tran go as long as they can to try and minimise how long that final stop is going to be. I think you're definitely going to see a two-stop race here from everyone. These cars are not going to have enough fuel to get from the end now. So Johnny Goindi, 11.6 second stop, out again. He is notorious for fast pit stops. We saw that in the first round. So he's having a very similar time pit stop, so I wonder whether we're going to see him right back at the front at the end, and the other guys maybe running a bit shorter on the pit stops and might get the jump. We just don't know. We're going to have to wait and see.
Well, he's ahead of Philippe Laibert. That's very crucial, but there's something even more crucial than that. He uses the first pit road exit and not the second one. So for Johnny Goindi, that is reprimandable by the stewards, and they will have a very big look at that from Johnny Goindi, see if he either A, gained an advantage, or B, broke the rules. Laibert will look to try and go through on Enzo Cantor. So for Johnny Goindi, even though he's got the lead right now, it is now going to be a case of it might be settled after the race is done. Big news coming out of Phillip Island, and that will be so crucial on the run here in this series when the championship points will get added up. Tran then behind Sebastian Job, starting to lose contact. Who dives onto the lane? Dummy thrown by Sebastian Job. He stays out with Tran as well. They're trying to go and run their tanks to absolute empty. It allows Greg Seitz into the battle for this championship fight, because he in position number 3 right now, only 5 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, and Greg Seitz is definitely there. He is waiting in the clutches. Obviously, your top 7 are still yet to pit. Johnny Gwindy, obviously, as you said, Jake, leading the people who have stopped twice, but that mistake coming out of pit lane could be costly for Gwindy, and even if he does win this race, the stewards may mean that, or may look at that and say, no, that's against the rules. It was very clear that you had to use the second pit lane exit for safety here, not the first, and he used the first, so I think that could play not into Johnny Gwindy and be against him come the end of this race, but Sebastian Joe continues to lead this with 8.5 laps to go.
Yes, he does. And Mick Watson, though, still in this battle in the 666 with the driver of Bill Fraser behind into the southern loop. And, well, for the time being, Fraser's going to wait behind. Gets a good exit, though, coming out of the corner. Stoner corner, named after Casey Stoner, the great bike rider from MotoGP. Is turn number 3, a passing corner in these vehicles before turn number 4 comes along of Honda. Of course, formerly a Honda test track, this one for the MotoGP vehicle for the Repsol Honda team. Has a little look to the inside, but at Siberia will have the worst line coming through. Fraser will stay behind. Great battle between these two. They've been silently plugging away all race long. Fraser's up 16 positions even, shall we say. Mick Watson currently up 14 even.
Yeah, and I think your biggest mover here in the field today has to be Ronan Griffin in the 39 car. So he's up 27 positions on where he started. He's currently in P15. So he is going to be our biggest mover today, sitting in P15. But Mick Watson and Bill Fraser, they have moved a long way up your field, currently 5th and 6th. And these two have been secretly fighting all race, and they're not going to let it finish until they get to the end.
No, they're certainly not here, and well, it's going to be down to who can pit latest. Mick Watson actually drops himself onto the lane. We'll see how good he is. 2 tyres into the grass on the single track run, and very conservative down onto pit road. Couple of drivers have been caught for speedy on pit road. Drivers like Miko Nasi is certainly one of them who has been caught from time to time. So they now need to look at just what is going on. Battle though, Cantor versus Leibert right now. And Leibert is going to have to play defense, but he's got nothing against Enzo Cantor in the Thrustmaster Movano car. He goes straight through, upper position he goes, into position number 8 overall up on circuit. Leibert didn't have much to fight back with, but into turn number 1, it's sort of the case that you have to be made here, Jack. You either have to let the driver through and sit behind, or play defense and maybe still lose it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that first corner is definitely hard to be able to defend through, and I think the best decision there is just let Enzo go and challenge him later on the lap, something which Phillip Leibert is looking to do coming down into Honda corner, but not going to successfully do it here. We've only got 7.5 laps left. He hasn't got much of a chance left, but Phillip Leibert wants that because although Enzo Cantor hasn't actually pitted for a second time yet, so Enzo Cantor we expect to see fall down the field when he pits again. He probably won't be able to get to the end from here because we do have 7 laps. Everyone else is pitting. So at the moment, your virtual leader, excluding all the people ahead of him who's only stopped once, is going to be Johnny Gwindy. But we'll wait and see what that decision is going to be coming out of the end of this race.
Yes, Greg Seitz comes down onto pit road, then he needs to from position number 3 as the leading 2 stay out. We'll keep an eye on his stop and see exactly where he will come out in comparison to the likes of Gwindy, to the likes of Philippe Leibert. So, with that in mind, it's going to be a case of who else comes in. Christian Cabanca also down onto the lane and very heavy on the brakes. He may have been caught speeding there. The gun was very heftily poised down there, and you'll hope that the gun marshals haven't done much. Sykes will come out and away with that shortened pit stop. Gwindy will go straight past, but for Greg Sykes, he has caught up quite a bit of time, and he's there with Philippe Leibert and co. So that is good strategy call from him, as he's now on the back of this big train. Leach at the back of it all. So Greg Seitz is in the fight now, if he can just catch up to Leach right now here, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, if he can catch up to them, that's going to be a great effort from him. Could see a very good result come the end of this race. Obviously, it's just under 7 laps to go. Sebastian Job continuing to lead this, but he has not pitted yet, and we expect to see him down onto pit lane very soon. Sebastian Job and Tuan Tran still separated by less than a second. This is brilliant racing from these two, and these guys, I think, are going to take it right down to the wire.
You have to remember, though, onto pit road, Sebastian Job overshot his box the first time. He doesn't want to do that a second time here today. Left-hand corner then of turn number 11. Who drops onto the lane? Does anyone drop onto the lane? Job thinks about it, and he does, and Tran will follow straight away down onto the lane, and Tran very, very unlucky down to lane. He's got to hit the brakes. He does the same as Barber into the wall, and Tran, a boulevard of broken dreams, as he now loses chance of getting himself up onto the podium. What a shame. He will have the fast repair, but Sebastian Job now just has to beat Gawindi.
Yeah, he does, and Sebastian Job has just come to a stop. Tran, that unfortunate incident coming into pit lane. Obviously, we saw that with Philippe Lebert earlier on in this race, and that is very easy to do here at Phillip Island. But Sebastian Job, 10.4 second stop. He's out and away. Bill Fraser also down onto pit lane. Let's see if he can beat Johnny Gawindi out. Johnny Gawindi is currently coming down the pit straight, going to cross the line just about now. So I don't know whether Sebastian Job has done it. I think Tran has gone, but Sebastian Job is clear at the front of this race, Jake.
He certainly is, and we will clarify up the pit lane rule. It's a case of if you make an incident coming out of pit road using the first pit lane exit, you're automatically being given as at fault. So Gawindi won't be held reprimandable by our look as we browsed over the rules. Sebastian Job will also be safe as he did exactly the same thing. But Job is clear, Gawindi second. Tran after all of this now has a scrap for third with Lebert fourth, and Arjen de Freitas could still get a top 5 out of this one here today, Jack. But the big question mark is on his fuel. He hasn't made any moves on any drivers today in the second half of his last stint because of the fact that he has to save and save and save and basically micromanage every single corner.
Yeah, I mean, every litre, every milliliter that he saves is going to be helpful to get him to the end of this race. We've got 5 laps to go. I want to see him go to the end from here. I want to see him to be able to get to the end because I think he does deserve that top 5 finish. He's done a sterling drive to come back from that very early stop, but there is still that possibility that he has to pit, and that could promote some of the underdogs really of this race. Andrew Leach, who's currently in 7th place, up 27 positions. He's really been an underdog as we see our leader Brian Doyle onto pit lane. But let's see if we can get Arjen de Freitas to the end, or maybe Andrew Leach to have a top 5 as Sebastian Job will officially take the lead coming across the line this time.
He certainly does. Brian Doyle then down onto pit road for the Positive Sim Racing team. The splash and dash before the way goes home, and he gets himself out and away, pissing in on lap 25 out of lap number 30. Now to start lap number 26, where he comes out onto circuit will be with Mikko Nasi, the driver he was fighting with earlier on in this race. And Mikko Nasi down into turn number 1 takes the position away, and Brian Doyle now drops into position number 9 overall. Mikko Nasi up into position number 8 here after everything that has happened. Battle though going on. Lebert is through on the driver of Tran for the final spot up on the podium. Tran will fight and scrap and claw this one now because he has a podium, a very rare podium for Tran. This is the making of his season on the season number 10, Jack, and Tran, a driver we normally associate with the mid-pack, now starting to bloom and flourish.
Yeah, and he's definitely showing his colours today here at Phillip Island, giving Philippe Lebert a good run for his money, and same with Arjen de Freitas, who's currently sat in the clutches here in 5th place, and he will definitely be wanting to stay behind these guys to save some fuel. But Tran, he will want that podium, and he will fight for every single last opportunity to get that podium. 4 laps to go. Let's see what he can do here, Jake.
See what he can do. Andrew Leach is now falling off of this group very, very heavily. Greg Seitz has already managed to make his way through as they head through MG corner, turn 11, and now turn 12, the final 2 corners on circuit as they look to start lap 27 out of lap numbers 30 here. 27, 28, 29, 34 laps to go here in this event when they cross the line. And for Tran, he still has a podium. He could have had himself 2nd place, but he threw away the opportunity of a race victory by dropping it down onto pit road. To the inside, though, goes the Benelux driver of Tran in the 777, and up onto the podium then. He gets himself once again, but it's not over and done with because these positions will change pretty much every single lap, Jack.
Yeah, they will, and if anything, they'll probably change every few corners here. Less than 4 laps to go now. We're really coming to the end of this race. but we're starting to see people pushing for that final position. People will want that those final few chances. We see Phillip Lebert move to the inside of Juan Charan to get that move back up into third position past, and a good move there from Phillip Lebert. Mr. 2K there, the organiser of this series, Juan Charan back down into fourth, but I expect that position to change before the end of this lap.
Andrew Leach then back out of pit road now with JB Master, Kurt Crum and Enzo Cantor in this train for P14, 15, 16 and 17. And this is the thing, there have been trains all day long. Mick Watson, Michael Dalla Valle and Christian Kabanga, shall we say, as Dalla Valle now will move down to the inside for the final spot inside the top 10. And points are so crucial here because you get points for every lap that you decide to lead here in this series, for every 3 laps that you lead. So Jack, you have to feel, if you're at the front of this field, it might even be worth sometimes staying out in this series just to get yourself a few laps. And that's what Sebastian Jobe has been trying to do, to get those extra points or 2, and it has paid off in very, very good fashion.
Yeah, it's definitely paid off for him. He's currently leading this race by 5 seconds over Johnny Guindi, and with 3 laps to go, I think he has this in the bag. But Juan Charan and Philippe Lebert really not giving up. Aaron De Freitas there, sitting in the clutches, waiting as he moves to the inside there of Phillip Lebert, trying to go past the draft, obviously giving him that little bit more speed, and past he goes. Phillip Lebert going to drop back into fourth, so that position changing once again, Jake, and that's going to change 3, 4, 5 more times before the end of this race.
It is here, and well, it's going to be all about who can manage it right now. Philippe Lebert will look to try and get back at Juan Charan with a good run out of the southern loop, and he does get that good run. So the run through Stoner and now towards turn number 4 will be crucial. The pair of them are not catching Johnny Guindi at the rate that they need to if they want position number 2. Lebert very easily to the outside. Charan didn't really put up much of a defense, and he's happy to sit there and wait come towards the end of this event, because he knows with just one fantastic run coming out of the final corner, he could steal it on the line from Lebert for that final spot on the podium. Lebert needs this result really because of the poor showing he had 2 weeks ago. We know right now here, Jack, that Philippe Lebert needs to get himself a podium, needs to get points on this man in position number 5, Aaron De Freitas, who is very marginal on the fuel, very marginal, like a certain driver before him was very marginal on the fuel, and that driver in history who is fabled for being short was a certain Vinicius Rocha.
Yeah, and I mean, Aaron De Freitas is going to need every single drop to get to the end of this race, but if he can finish 5th, that'd be a good points haul for him. But Philippe Lebert will want to finish ahead of him. Juan Charan will want a good points haul here as well, because that could really help him going forward through the rest of the season. That could also help him gain a few more points in the end of the season, move him up a few places in the final standings. But these guys, I mean, Juan Charan, all he needs coming off that final corner is a good run. I would be behind Philippe Lebert coming into that final turn on the final lap, as we see him go to the outside again coming towards turn 1, going to move up into 3rd, but that position is surely going to change before the end of this lap, Jake.
Certainly is, and with just 2 laps to go, I fear that they're just too far away from the driver of Johnny Guindi here, who is 5.1 seconds off of Sebastian Jobe, who even while overshooting his pit box, it seems that everyone's had their own little issue through this race, which has put them back through this field and has meant that life has been that little bit more difficult. Lebert again looking towards the inside as they head towards the corner of Honda, and he'll stay behind this time, give himself the prime position heading on to the final lap. Good strategy call right now playing in from Lebert.
Yeah, definitely. Juan Charan going to run a bit wide coming out of Honda there. So I think Philippe Lebert will want to be behind, because he knows he can get a good run coming off of 12 and that jump coming down onto the main straight. But it's going to be interesting to see what those two are going to do, because essentially whoever's going to be behind coming into turn 12 in that last lap, I think has got the best chance at 3rd place, Jake.
Oh, big scare for Sebastian Jobe as Pascal van den Hoek has a massive moment at Lukey Heights, holds it together, but that could have taken out the race leader on the penultimate lap of this event. So Sebastian Jobe breathes a sigh of relief then as the white flag will come out this time by for the final lap of this event, and the podium still to be decided. Drivers like Aaron De Freitas marginal on the fuel, Lebert needing to make moves on Juan Charan, looking for his first podium in the 2K World Cup and hoping desperately he can get it. Side by side they look to try, and Lebert gets a storming run down towards turn number 1 of Doohan Corner here as they head down the Gardner Straight, and now Juan Charan will have to fall behind and wait for the opportunity opportunity. Maybe at turn number 4 might be the best way that he can do it, but he'll know that Phillip Barber will have to play the line game of being defensive here around this circuit. So turn number 2, the southern loop, just about holding that momentum at 120 kilometers an hour before getting yourself back on the power, using the toe to your advantage and getting that run. I don't think there's going to be much available for the driver of Arjen de Freitas in position number 5 to fight back with, and Tran is not close enough on the run down in to Honda corner, and that might be one of the very last chances he's going to have in this event. Johnny Gawindi seems to be slowing up ever so slightly. That is going to be playing into as a factor towards the end of this event. Siberia now for 3, 4 and 5. Turn number 6 out on circuit, and from there it's the run to Lukey Heights. From there it's MG corner, and also from there is turns 11 and 12 to end this event. One driver out on his own is Sebastian Job, who rounds Lukey Heights and will have 3 corners to go with Norbert Souza behind, who could have challenged for this race if it wasn't for a jump start between himself and Arjen de Freitas. He finished 1 lap down in the end, will Norbert Souza, but round the final corners will the driver of Sebastian Job go, because he will come to the line at the end of this event and look to take a very, very strong race victory here at round number 2. Core Sim Racing will smile because Sebastian Job wins at Phillip Island in a very, very convincing manner in the final stages of this event. But side by side for the final spot on the podium, Tran trying to steal one. Tran is going to steal one, is he? Close on the line, and it's going to be when they cross Tuan Tran by just 19 thousandths of a second. A dream podium for the 777, and Leiber will be kicking himself that he's only lost 1 position, or gained 1 position even, to Arjen de Freitas. Fantastic to see for Tuan Tran here, Jack.
Yeah, that is brilliant from those two. He just got a great run coming off of the final turn, and that's brilliant for him. And what a good race we saw from these drivers today. Some good racing out there, some brilliant racing. Very close, very tight, and very clean mostly. So some good racing from these guys. We'll be looking forward to interview these guys in the post-race show.
Yeah, we certainly will. Adam Blocker steals one away from Bill Fisher by just 100th of a second. The side-by-sides just continue on and on. Casey Black, Stoyles here, all trying to get themselves over the line, and just the last few vehicles then trying to go through. Battle between Colin Van Ram and Scott Velez right now, because we are looking to really make this battle happen and see if anything can really make a move go on. Velez is just for now going to hold off Colin Van Ram on that drive to the line, and with the last of the few vehicles coming across to the line, we'll get ourselves then the official classified results here from Phillip Island, round 2 here of what is going to be your Skip Barber 2K World Cup Series. At a very cold and a very blustery day, Sebastian Job battles the weather conditions and takes the victory by 5.6 seconds over Johnny Gawindi for TT Racing in second. Tuan Tran gets a dream podium, edging out Mr. 2K World Cup Phillip Barber in 4th. Stunning recovery drive though from Arjen de Freitas. 2 stops, even with a drive-through penalty to get in 5th. 6th will go to Brian Duell with 7th. Miko Nazi speeding on pit road, finishes only 8th overall. Gareth Dorning and Christian Kabanga will round out the top 10. And then you look further down to drivers like Enzo Cantor in position number 14, struggling today with a back-of-grid start. Drivers like JB Masada, Andrew Leach, who was trying to make something happen in the early goings. Stephen Stoyles had a very okay run today. Gets himself actually up 9 positions to position 24. And the last car on the leading lap, of course, is Captain John Morgan. And then cars finishing a lap down, likes of those being Norbert Souza, like Pascal Vandenhoek, like the drivers of Kane Halliburton and Roman Kajka, who came together as well, Tom Ward, Lionel Game and Michael Halfordasson. But right now, we are just going to step aside for a couple of moments. The post-race show coming to you after this. Well, we've seen some classic Skip Barber 2K World Cup action here today, and the result will surprise a couple of people, but there was still some very, very good results to be had here today. Joining us now in the commentary booth was your championship leader and reigning champion in the form of Arjen de Freitas. Arjen, P number 5, but the big talking point from you were getting a little bit too eager off the start, jumping the start line.
Yes, I saw Norbert flinch before, and so I knew he had a drive-through or something, stop and go. But then he flinched a second time, and I flinched with him. So that basically cost me the race. But I mean, in the end, it was pretty funny.
Well, you can laugh at it afterwards, but you had to do a really good recovery drive through the field. It was a two-stop strategy here today at Phillip Island, and one of the big difficulties that you had was probably getting yourself through maybe slower vehicles. How good is the driving standards here in this league, knowing that you had the ability to really push and attack through this field with vehicles that were maybe a second and a half slower than you?
Yeah, I mean, I took it really easy because I had to save fuel anyways. I pitted on lap 3, I think, end of lap 3, the last I could. But I know normally you could only do like 12, maybe 13 laps with saving on a stint. But I had to make it like 13 and 15, I think. So yeah, basically I drove really slowly. It didn't or sit in the draft of Enzo, and yeah, some of the guys in the back, they spun out, or there was some tricky driving there sometimes. Had to get between them and get around them, but in the end, kind of worked out.
Yeah, it certainly did. And well, finally, before we let you go, 2 weeks' time, shall we say, heading over to Summit Point, bread and butter basics of racing. Summit Point, some drivers get really tired of racing there, don't you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of my favorites. I have a good track record there, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's always good fun. It's pretty close most of the time because everybody has the content and knows the track really well. So and it's always going to be fun with the engine blowing up and stuff.
So keep your eyes peeled, certainly, for that. Arjen de Freitas for the Positive Sim Racing team, finishing in position number 5. But the two TT Racing boys are going to be joining us right now, Johnny Gawindi and Philippe Lebert. Johnny, P2 today. It all started to fall apart in the final stages. It just seemed that it wasn't going to happen for you for the victory.
Yeah, it was definitely nerve-wracking having two fast guys behind you working together. But yeah, I knew in the end, with 3 laps to go, I knew it wasn't enough unless I made a big mistake. Thankfully, it didn't happen. But yeah, the first few laps of that second stint, I made life a bit more difficult than it should have been. I was driving a little bit too slowly and making some small mistakes. But afterwards, it was fine. It all worked out.
Certainly did work out for you, and a very strong points finish for you today in position number 2. Do you feel that maybe this year is starting to gear up more like to be your year?
Well, I hope the races I do, I get similar results. But I'm not sure I'll be able to do every single race because of other commitments. So I'm just going to try and do my best whenever I show up. But I won't technically be pushing for the championship or anything like that, I don't think.
But still a very good result indeed. Philippe, though, we do have to talk about you because you've had a very, very helter-skelter race. Just talk us about your pit road antics here today.
I thought there were style points for pit entry, but I was wrong. So, yeah, that was awful. I think I lost 10 or 15 seconds in that accident. It would have been a totally different race if I didn't make that mistake.
Certainly would have been a totally different race, but you were there fighting for the podium, though, still at the end of the race overall. And, well, it seems that Tuan Tran gets himself a little bit lucky and gets one of his first podiums here in the season of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup. So, for you, 4th place today. Are you happy with 4th place after everything that's happened?
Yeah, considering what I did during my first pit stop, I'm pretty happy with that. I didn't expect to finish that high up. But of course, I had the pace to at least be second or even fight for the win. So I'm a little disappointed as well.
Well, you certainly can be disappointed. But before I let the pair of you go, is there any shout-outs or sponsors you'd like to get out there?
Well, obviously the team TT Racing. I think today at least, Philippe, me, and Greg did a great job, and hopefully we can pull together good results like this one for the rest of the season.
Johnny said it.
Johnny certainly did say it indeed. Johnny Gwindy and Philippe Lebert for TT Racing doing a very good job of things. But before we go, we have a breaking news story here at RaceSpot TV. Will is alive and here with us. Will, how are you feeling?
I'm alive, apparently. Hello.
Hello, and well, of course, Will, you know, it's nice to see you up and moving and better again after what has happened to you today. But of course, we'll probably see you back in the booth for two very big events happening over the next 2 weeks. The first of them being the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series from Imola, and the second one, Skip Barber 2K World Cup from Summit Point.
I'm not actually here for the next race, so you get my apologies for that one for the 2K World Cup. But, yeah, iRacing World Championship. I just want to say very quickly as well, thanks to Paul, thanks to Jake, thanks to Connery, thanks to Jack, and also my best friend in the world, thanks to Hugo for sorting my life out when I unfortunately couldn't be here early on. And also apologies to anyone who saw the mess on Facebook. Trust me, I don't want that to happen. Life takes over sometimes.
Life certainly does. So Mr. Will Vincent then alive and kicking as the voice of sim racing. But for the time being, that's all we're going to have time for here this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you are around the world. A big thank you to all the drivers and to all the teams who are up there kicking and racing here today. And a big thank you to all of you who are racing at home. Also, special thanks have to go to Istvan Balog's track camera packs for Gourmet, and also the likes of Anvern Designs, the official graphics partner of RaceSpot TV. Also, ATVO and Appgeneer, the official graphics that we have here for RaceSpot TV. But for the time being, that's been Mr. Will Vincent, Mr. Hugo Louise, and Mr. Jack Stiles. I've been hashtag Do You Mind Jake Sperry, and well, smiles around for Sebastian Job, and for Tuan Tran getting a very rare podium. He'll have to be smiling from ear to ear. Good night.